We assume today that when we clock in for a shift, we are going to clock out and go home in one piece. But that expectation of physical survival is actually a relatively recent invention. During the intense economic expansion of the 1960s, the American factory floor was highly dangerous. Industries saw rampant rates of machine amputations, toxic chemical poisonings, and fatal high-velocity falls. Hazard management was left entirely up to local managers. Severe injuries were routinely written off as the unavoidable cost of doing business, with companies simply replacing injured workers rather than spending capital to fix the machines. The safety protocols we rely on today did not naturally emerge from industrial progress. They were forced into existence by a staggering human toll. That mounting casualty list triggered the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970. The OSHA Act is a federal law designed specifically to ensure safe and healthy working conditions for employees across the country. When President Richard Nixon signed the bill, he legally recognized that bodily preservation on the job is a civil right for every working man and woman in the nation. By April 1971, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, opened its doors within the U.S. Department of Labor. To hit the ground running, the agency immediately adopted hundreds of existing industry consensus standards to build a working regulatory baseline. Protecting workers was no longer a private corporate option, it was now an enforceable federal mandate. OSHA operates on a specific legal social contract that dictates exactly who holds power and who holds liability on any job site. Workers are granted explicit rights. They are guaranteed a hazard-free workplace, safety training delivered in a language they actually understand, and direct access to their own medical and chemical exposure records. Critically, the law provides strict whistleblower protections. An employee can report a safety hazard or request a federal inspection without the threat of being fired or retaliated against by management. On the flip side, employers shoulder the liability. They must maintain highly transparent logs of any workplace injuries and provide all required personal protective equipment at no cost to the worker. Personal protective equipment, or PPE, includes wearable safety gear like hard hats, safety glasses, and respirators designed to minimize exposure to hazards. The ultimate regulatory catch-all holding this together is the General Duty Clause. Found in Section 5A of the OSHA Act, this clause requires employers to eliminate any recognized serious hazards, even if the government hasn't written a specific rule for that exact danger yet. This framework ensures that the economic power a company holds over its employees cannot legally override an individual's right to physical safety. OSHA translates that broad general duty clause into highly specific, actionable rulebooks. Most Americans fall under two major standards: general industry, in Title 29 of the Code of Federal Regulations, and construction. The CFR officially codifies permanent federal rules. Specialized workers are covered by maritime standards for shipyards and agriculture standards for farming. Across these sectors, the rules dictate precise protocols. They mandate guardrails for fall protection, outline hazard communication to properly label toxic chemicals, and require lockout-tagout procedures. Lockout/tagout is a safety protocol where hazardous energy sources are isolated and physically locked off before a worker performs machine maintenance. These massive codebooks are not arbitrary government bureaucracy. They are highly evolved, data-driven blueprints built to neutralize specific, proven, and lethal hazards. A rulebook means nothing without rigor. OSHA enforces these standards through unannounced on-site inspections. This diagram shows the strict priority list that triggers an inspector showing up at a worksite. The agency responds first to reports of imminent danger, followed by catastrophes with fatalities or hospitalizations, then worker complaints, and finally targeted inspections for high-risk industries. Despite the constant threat of an audit, systemic failures happen every single day. We see this clearly in OSHA's top 10 most frequently cited violations. Fall protection towers significantly above the rest, consistently ranking as the most common repeat offense, followed closely by hazard communication, ladders, and scaffolding. When investigators dig into these violations, the root causes are almost always the same: managerial complacency, corner cutting to save time, and a severe lack of training. An OSHA citation carries a heavy financial penalty. More importantly, it serves as documented proof of a systemic failure, the kind of negligence that directly precedes the fatal tragedies the agency was built to prevent. While OSHA provides the legal framework and the enforcement muscle, true workplace safety requires proactive prevention on the ground. That is where OSHA 10-hour and 30-hour training programs come in. These courses teach workers how to independently recognize and mitigate physical hazards before an accident happens. Proper training empowers a worker to spot a missing guardrail or unlabeled chemical drum and confidently halt operations before an ambulance is called. OSHA exists to protect lives, but a strong safety culture requires everyone's active participation. If you found this breakdown helpful, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it to help keep your fellow workers educated and safe.